Hello, welcome or welcome back. My name is Arian. Today, let's talk reading stats. I track a few numbers through a spreadsheet that I've made myself. I'm not going to share the spreadsheet because it's a hot mess and only I would understand it. It's not very prettily edited, I guess. But I track some stats. I'm going to tell you about them right now. So, first off, let's go with total pages. This year I read 69,953 pages. I usually try to go for 100,000 pages a year, and obviously I fell well short. The last few months of 2022 were not heavy reading months. I averaged about 326 pages per book and about 192 pages per day. My average star rating was 3.43 stars. Now that those quick throwaway numbers are out there, let's get into the graphs. My graphs are ugly. It's very, very basic settings on Excel. I mostly read fantasy. 40.3% of the books that I read were fantasy. My second highest category was nonfiction at 12.3%, and then after that was horror at 10.4%. So yeah, that makes sense for what I read. I think last year was fantasy then sci-fi. I didn't read nearly as much sci-fi this year as I did last year, so this all makes perfect sense to me. I've got the whole graph up here. I've probably had it up here this whole time, so you can kind of see the other little things. The tiny little sliver that that isn't labeled, it's like in the very center at the top, that is classics. So I read one classic all year. Ooh. Not very good. The next category is demographic, and this is the demographic that the book is marketed towards. So adult, young adult, or middle grade are really the only demographics I track, and as expected, I read mostly adult books at 79.1%. As the fact that I am an adult, this makes sense that I read mostly adult books, I would hope. I have never really loved middle grades, and young adult is kind of hit or miss for me, so it is what it is. Sources is up next, and this is where I sourced the book from. So mostly I sourced it from my owned TBR. Purchase this year category, it's kind of a mislabel, but that is basically ones that I purchased to specifically read right then and there. And then owned TBR ones that I purchase and then I end up reading at some point at a later date. So mostly from my own TBR, then from my library at almost 20% is books that I borrow from the library. ARCs are 17.1%, and then purchase this year is 15.2%. I also read books from book boxes and Kindle Unlimited, but I would like the library in the future to be a heavier portion. I'm trying to get rid of my physical TBR this year, so I still think it's going to be the own TBR is going to be the highest, but I would definitely like to prioritize borrowing from my library instead of spending money on books that I may or may not end up keeping. Format. What format did I read the books in? Physical, mostly. 63.5% of the books that I read were physical copies. Then 24.2% of them were ebooks, with audiobooks at 11.4%. That itty bitty little green tab up there that says multi, or where I'm reading it two ways, where maybe I'm reading it partially on audio and then partially as a physical copy. Sometimes I'll read it in front of my face and then listen to the audiobook at the same time. The next category is called times read, which is also a misnomer. I should probably label these better. But 93.4% of the books I read were new to me books, and then 6.6% of them were books that I've reread. So mostly reading new books, not a whole lot of rereads. Totally makes sense. The next category is the author status, which is this a new to me author or a repeat author? And this is almost split right down the middle. 51.2% are authors that I've read from before, but 48.8% are authors that are new to me. And I think this is fantastic, having this nearly 50-50 where I'm getting to experience new authors, but I'm also reading authors that I've enjoyed other works from. Next category is the author gender, and unsurprisingly most of the authors I read from are female at 62.6%. 33.2% of the authors I read are male. 3.3% are like multiple authors of various genders, where it's like an anthology or something like that. And then this little green tab up at the top again are non-binary authors. So I've read from 2 non-binary authors this year that I personally am aware that that author is non-binary. There's a small unfortunate chance that I may be misgendering an author because I am not perfect. The last chart that we're going to look at is my star rating. I can't get this to go in number order at the bottom, so it went by like most to least. So mostly I gave 3 stars. I gave 94 books that I read 3 stars, followed closely by 4 stars at 79 books, and then we drop off considerably down to 2 stars, where I gave 18 books 2 stars, 18 books 5 stars, and only 2 books 1 star. And that's all my stats for this year, at least the ones that I can think of off the top of my head. Let me know some of your reading stats down in the comments below, and I'll see you tomorrow for another video. Bye!